All right, welcome to another episode of NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode, we're going to be talking about the Dallas Cowboys, and I am joined by Massey from the 40 podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I am ready for the season, and any day
Yeah,
that I can talk about football is a good day.
absolutely, man. I'm right there with you on that.
So, first of all, how long have you been podcasting, and how long have you been, a Cowboys fan?
Well, yeah, I've been a Cowboys fan pretty much my whole life. I'm a third generation Cowboys fan. My grandfather was a Cowboys fan. My dad was a Cowboys fan. Kind of just runs in the family. They're from Texas, so kind of just grew up that way. Um, Podcasting, I got into podcasting probably about 2018.
Mm.
Just did an NFL podcast with a couple friends. Just had fun. Didn't really go anywhere. Just had fun with it. And did another podcast about just all sports, like just covered all sports and everything that was happening. Way too much going on in the sports world to do a podcast about it. Everything like that. And then I've been doing specific Cowboys content for a little bit over a year now, probably about a year and a half now.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it's been a roller coaster. I mean, you were excited at the beginning of last year, and then kind of the way it
Hmm.
ended. But there's always something that's happening with the Cowboys, and when you look
Yes.
at this season, are you? I guess what are you worried about the most with this team going into the year?
Yeah, I think the biggest worry for most Cowboys fans right now is the offensive line. The offensive line kind of fell apart at the end of last year, and that was a big part of the struggles at the end of the last year. And if you remember in the playoff game against the 49ers basically played 7 men back and rushed with the 4-man line, and they pressured Dak Prescott 23 times with a 4-man line, and he was running for his life, didn't have a ton of time to throw, and it was ugly. And from there, all they have done is gotten worse to this point. So you think about what their line was in that game, and they've gotten worse. Obviously, now with the terrible news that Tyron Smith got injured, he's out for the majority, if not all of the season. They cut Leo Collins because of off the field issues. They were tired of his off the field issues that were coming up, so they cut him. So you now have to replace those two, and then our rookie, who we thought was going to fill in for left guard, is now filling in at left tackle. We have Connor McGovern at left guard, who didn't play particularly well there when he played there last year. So basically, it's Zach Martin and a lot of question marks along that offensive line. So it's scary right now.
Well, along that same vein, I've got my first overreaction statement here. So I'm going to ask you a question, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say overreaction or not. All right. So in that vein, with the line and the offense, so overreaction or not, 22. The 2022 offensive identity will be the running game.
Not an overreaction. The
Mm.
Cowboys want to run the ball this year. The front office is stuck in the 1990s, and they believe that the formula of Emmitt Smith running the ball and leading this team is the formula to win in today's NFL. And for the past 25 years, we've known that that's no longer the case in the NFL. It's a passing league now. Cowboys front office has not caught up to that line of thinking.
And that has to be frustrating as a fan then.
Oh, it's very frustrating. I mean, you still have a lot of Cowboys fans who are gonna pound the table to say, no, that's the way to do it. That we got to run it. Look at 2016, look at 2014. We were run first team and we did well. Well, yeah, we were, and I get it, we did. But the problem is those teams ran the ball more to protect the defense, which the defense was really bad those 2 years. So they ran the ball more to protect the defense. Well, coming into this year, the defense is a strength. It's a very good defense, so you don't need to protect the defense anymore. So I don't really agree with that line of thinking.
Yeah, and we talked about the running game then as well, and we'll get into defense in a little bit here. I have another overreaction statement here.
Mm-hmm.
Overreaction or not, Ezekiel Elliott is no longer elite.
Not an overreaction. I think he's still very good. if you remember at the beginning of last year, he started off very well. He was in the top 5 of rushing yards and TDs for the first 5 weeks, and then he tore his MCL, and then we didn't find out about the torn MCL until like the last week of the season that he'd been playing on it. You could tell he was injured. You could watch him and be like, dude, he's not as fast. He's limping. There's something wrong. But we didn't find out what it was, which a torn MCL. So if he can stay healthy, which is a question, he could be a very good back. But is he elite? I don't think so.
Yeah, and you look at the Cowboys organization; they've had elite running backs, all the Emmitt Smith and everything, but
Yeah.
now the league it's more of a committee, correct?
Yeah. It's not as much of a committee as most Cowboys fans would like, because Tony Pollard has proven to be very effective when he has the ball in his hand, and he's a threat. And he's more of a home run threat than Ezekiel Elliott is now at his stage in his career. So a lot of people want to see Tony Pollard get more touches, whether it be catches or rushing attempts. There is rumors that he's going to be using the slot a little bit this year, which is fine because he played as a slot. That's what his position was in college. He played at Memphis as a slot receiver. So, yeah, we want Pollard to get more touches, and we want it to be more of a committee. If you could have something like a 60-40 split between them, I think most Cowboys fans would be happy.
Yeah, and you talk about that running game. Do you think it's the coaching, Mike McCarthy, kind of stuck in old age, or maybe ownership, pushing Ezekiel Elliott to be the guy, or
there is something that with the Dallas Cowboys, it's not like hey, we're out in the public and saying it, but it's kind of known, is with the Dallas Cowboys, money plays. So if you have a big contract, you're playing. And it's even so to the point where it's gone against what the coaching staff wants. So last year, the coaching staff was fed up with La'el Collins, completely fed up, because if you remember, La'el Collins in 2019 had his big breakout year. He was rated as one of the best right tackles in the league. And then 2020 came along, and Mike McCarthy and his staff comes in, and La'el Collins shows up to camp out of shape and way overweight. And then that causes a hip injury, which he has to have surgery on, and he misses the entire season in McCarthy's first year. Then his second year, last year, Collins shows up in shape, looking good, and then gets the 5-game suspension for bribing the drug tester. So they were fed up with him. That's all they knew about him those 2 years. So they didn't want him anymore. But when he came back, the coaching staff loved Steele. They wanted Steele there. But the upstairs was like, no, we want Collins in. Collins is our guy we're paying to play there. So that's kind of how it went.
Yeah, that's got to be difficult. Like overall, I mean, just that struggle between Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, that in the coaching, and that this actually leads then to my next overreaction.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McCarthy will be the Cowboys coach in 2023.
I think that's an overreaction. I don't think he's there. If I'm being honest with you, I think that they have set him up for failure this year with everything they have done. I think that even if he somehow wins a playoff game this year, I think he's gone. I think that the Cowboys, in my honest opinion, and from what I've heard, is what the Cowboys are going to do is, he's going to be gone. They're going to attempt to grab Sean Payton. If they cannot convince Sean Payton to come in, then Dan Quinn is most likely your head coach for the 2023 season. But I do not think Mike McCarthy will be here.
This has to be the most passive-aggressive way to address a coaching search. I mean, what they, keeping Dan Quinn and all of that, right?
Yeah, it really, man, I kind of feel bad for Mike McCarthy, because I think he knows the writing's on the wall, and he's kind of just going with the flow right now, and hoping that he could do something to save his job. Now, Can he? I don't know. If he wins the Super Bowl, obviously he's going to be here, but I don't think this team right now is good enough to win a Super Bowl. So it's going to be very difficult for him he's in the last year of his contract, so they don't even have to fire him. So they can just, hey, thank you for your service.
I'm getting some Major League, the movie Major League vibes here. If they just, pull out like a, some type of, crazy, picture of someone and just like tear off, I don't know how many wins they need to get, the Super Bowl. And
Yeah.
I can see Mike McCarthy saying, let's do this. And I just don't know who's going to follow him.
Yeah, the problem is that the Cowboys have a light schedule, and I could see them making the playoffs. They have a very easy schedule, so I can see them making the playoffs. And then the Cowboys' whole philosophy, the front office believes that just get into the playoffs, and anything can happen, and that's what they truly believe. So they think, oh, if we make a team that's good enough to get into the playoffs, then we have a chance, and it's baffling that that's your mindset, but they know they play in a weaker division, and they know that they have a shot at trying to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, it worked. Obviously, worked against them last year.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is then my next one here, and everyone's asking about this. Then, so Dak Prescott can lead the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. Overreaction or not?
That is not an overreaction in my opinion. I think Dak Prescott is an elite quarterback. I know everybody has their own definition of what elite is, but I think he is a top 6 to 7 quarterback in this league, 6 to 8, that range. And I think that he can definitely lead his team to the Super Bowl. I mean, we've seen quarterbacks such as Rex Grossman lead their teams to the Super Bowl. So it's hard to say like, oh, a quarterback who, even if you rank him just outside the top 10, like it's hard to say like, oh, he can't lead a team to Super Bowl, because we've seen quarterbacks in the bottom of the league do it before. But
I'm gonna say I'm a Bears fan. You just hurt me there.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
But yeah, but like though, like Rex Grossman, if that Bears team had a quarterback who as good as Dak Prescott, they win the Super Bowl easily.
Preach
They
it.
blow
Yeah.
teams out.
Yep.
So yeah, Dak Prescott can lead the team to the Super Bowl. I preach this all the time. Wins are not a quarterback stat. This is a team game, and no individual player wins the Super Bowl by themselves. So you have to have a complete team around them. There's 3 phases to this game. There's offense, there's defense, and there's special teams, and all 3 of them matter.
Absolutely. And you talked about individuals, and we're talking about Dak Prescott. So I have another overreaction statement.
Mm-hmm.
Dak Prescott can win an MVP.
I think he can. I don't think that's an overreaction. I really do. I'm a big Dak Prescott believer. I think, look at last year. Only him and Aaron Rodgers put up at least 37 passing touchdowns and 11 or less interceptions last year. He puts up good numbers. He plays well. Can the rest of his team lift the team up and help him guide the team to a good enough record to be in the MVP conversation this year? I don't know. But I think he's a quality enough quarterback to win it. It's just like, you have to have a good record to do it. You have to be among the best teams to win the MVP.
Yeah, it's such an interesting discussion, about what is an MVP. If a team is terrible and Dak Prescott just balls out, probably not going to get consideration.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting this year too. Will Aaron Rodgers get consideration? No matter how good he does, getting 3 in a row or getting even with all the off the field stuff, because a lot of voters put that on the players as well.
Absolutely. And you think about it, you just look at the MVP races in the past. It's always from a team that's either the 1 or 2 seed in their conference, and it's a top team. And it's not like baseball, where if you're the best player, you're the best player, and you can win MVP. Like we've seen people win it, like Mike Trout, the team didn't even make the playoffs. So like, but football doesn't operate like that when it comes to the MVP. You have to be a top team, because there is that stigma around the quarterback in football where if you're a good quarterback, you have to win. Like, I get it. Like, a good quarterback will give you the best advantage over any other position. I get that. But you're not winning just being a good quarterback. Like, your team's not going to win just because you have a good quarterback. Look at Matthew Stafford in Detroit all of those years. Never won a playoff game. He leaves and goes to a team with players on it, and he wins the Super Bowl in the very first year.
Yeah, that's a great point there. So, on quarterbacks in the division, then go ahead and rank the NFC East division quarterbacks.
Okay. Dak Prescott at 1.
Mm-hmm.
Jalen Hurts at 2. I'll go Carson Wentz at 3. And I guess Daniel Jones is looking to be the starting quarterback in New York, so Daniel Jones last. I don't know how long Daniel Jones is going to be the starter, but for right now, I'll say Daniel Jones.
Yeah, and I think everybody's kind of got the Dak that same kind of progression, and it'll just be interesting to see obviously what Wentz does in Washington. I have actually, and you may not want to hear this, I have actually been on the Jalen Hurts for MVP discussion for a while.
Oh man.
But you look at it, and a lot of it is stats and going changing the narrative, and having AJ Brown there, he has that opportunity to put a lot of stats up, and
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens in the division. Do you think the Cowboys are going to win the division?
I think it's before Tyron Smith went down. I had the Cowboys winning the division. It has been that's a big blow in my opinion, losing Tyron Smith. I know he hasn't been the healthiest and he's missed games, but to miss every game is really big. And so I have it close. I'll still say the Cowboys win the division, but maybe only by a game or maybe by a tiebreaker. Same record with the tiebreaker.
And that's beating the Eagles. Eagles are
Yes,
definitely
it'll be it'll be the Eagles. Yeah.
When you look at this offense, we've talked about running back, we've talked about quarterback. Wide receiver is the big question mark that a lot of people are talking about. And when you look at CeeDee Lamb, he's a special talent.
Yes.
So here's my overreaction then. CeeDee Lamb will lead the league in receiving yards in 2022.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to say overreaction just because I don't think he will, but I think he'll be top 10, top 5 or 10. So I don't think he'll lead it, but I think he'll be up there. I think he's going to have a good year. I think he's going to be over 1,300 yards. I just don't think he'll lead the league in receiving yards because you got a couple guys who put up monster numbers.
Yeah, and you look at that as well. I mean, who else do the Cowboys have to begin the season? I mean, there's injuries, there's a lot of different things. Who is really going to be able to take targets away from CeeDee Lamb though?
It's going to be Dalton Schultz at tight end though, and Schultz gets a ton of targets. He's going to get a lot of targets this year just because he's that guy. And like you said, there's not a lot of options at wide receiver outside of Lamb. So I think they're going to rely heavily on Dalton Schultz. But yeah, CeeDee Lamb's going to be the main guy.
Yeah, he's going to have to. And so fantasy wise, you're picking CeeDee Lamb up. Are you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He's definitely one of the top receivers in fantasy for me.
Are you picking Zeke up or no?
I just had a draft on Sunday, and I had the second pick, so it came back around, and Zeke was there in the second round, and they had gone really running back heavy in the first few rounds. So I did pick Zeke just because he was the best one available, but he gets touchdowns. He's going to get a lot of touchdowns. He's going to get carries. Hopefully, he stays healthy. I know he's going to play because that guy, he's a tough guy who always puts his body on the line. So I think he's going to get a lot of carries still, and he gets touchdowns.
Yeah, that's a great point. And talking about like a tough guy on the other side of the ball, Micah Parsons, exploded onto the scene last year, and you're looking for big things from him this year. So overreaction or not, Micah Parsons will win the Defensive Player of the Year in 2022.
Not an overreaction at all. That is a legitimate possibility. He finished second last year behind TJ Watt. There's some people who even made arguments for him to win it. So I don't think that's an overreaction at all. If you look back at Micah Parsons' year, for the first 8 games, he had 4 sacks. He was just understanding the game. He didn't play in 2020 in college at Penn State. He sat the year out for COVID. So he came back. He hadn't played in over a year, and it took him half the season to really get acclimated to the league. And then he took off, and he was unbelievable. And he finished with 13 sacks on the year. So he had 9 sacks in the last half of the season. So it shows you his potential. And at training, he didn't play in preseason at all, but at training camp, he was unblockable by any of our tackles. And even when we had joint practices, he was unblockable. When we went up against Denver, there was a series where he sacked because there's no contact, but sacked Russell Wilson 3 straight plays. And it was he's just unblockable. And the guy's incredible. Like I have gone on record as admitting I'm one of the people that was way wrong on him. I didn't want to draft Micah Parsons because I thought he was going to be used strictly as an off the ball linebacker. I'm not huge on their value that high in the draft. He wasn't used as just an off the ball linebacker. He was used as a pass rusher as well. And he has proven so many people wrong with his ability.
This has to be the best defense the Cowboys have had in a long time, right?
Man, yeah, I think it honestly is. I cannot probably the 90s since the defense has been this good, in my opinion.
Like Charles Haley, Deion Sanders. Yeah.
This defense can be scary, and this defense is a lot of the reason why I'm saying that we could still win the division. I think Dak Prescott's going to be fine. I don't think they're going to have a horrible offense. It's not going to be the number 1 offense like it was last year. I'm saying it won't be, but it's going to be an okay offense, and this defense is going to just be beastly, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and so obviously we got Diggs on that side of the ball as well, and what are some other players that you're looking to step up and you think may step up in 2022 other than Diggs and Parsons?
Yeah, so another really big one, he's been a leader for our team for a while, is DeMarcus Lawrence. He missed the first 8 games of the year last year with a broken foot. He broke his he played in the first game, then he missed 8 games because of a broken foot. He broke his foot in practice right after the first game. So he's another huge player. Our defense really went up a lot when he came back. He helped out Micah Parsons and freeing him up a lot. Another person along the defensive line is Neville Gallimore for defensive tackle. He missed the first 8 games last year, and when he came back, he really helped out. He has put on a lot of weight this year, and he looks strong. He looks really, really strong, and I think he can provide really good pressure up the middle for the pass rush. And then the other one I would like to mention is Jaron Kearse. He was an NFL journeyman, Vikings, Lions, and basically we signed him last offseason as somebody that we thought, he can provide some good special teams. And then he just started slowly making his way and started playing more and started making play and became really one of the better safeties in the league last year, playing in a hybrid safety linebacker role in a big nickel. So basically, we took a linebacker out and played him in that kind of rover role, played him on the line of scrimmage a lot. He guarded tight ends a lot, and he just had a really, really good year. And it looked like he had his breakout year. So I'm excited to see what he can follow, how he can follow that up this year.
Yeah, and so you look at this defense then, how are opposing offenses going to attack it? I mean, the weak point, really, you got strong, players all around. I mean, what is the weakest point? Is it, linebackers? I mean, obviously not. I mean, it's good all around.
It is. The weak point last year and what got us exposed in the playoff game last year was our run defense.
Yeah.
And the 49ers ran for 196 yards on us and just controlled the clock. And that was the weak point of the defense. And so this year, a couple of our defensive tackles bulked up. We went out and signed Anthony Barr. We bulked up and got a big body in the middle, and we drafted John Ridgeway, who might not be that big of a playmaker this year, but he's someone that we're looking forward to in the future. So they're trying to address that. But so far, what we've seen in preseason, and I get it, it's preseason. Like you can only go off so much of that in preseason, but they played really, really good run defense, and they've dominated the line of scrimmage, haven't allowed that much rushing, and so they played really well. And we're hoping that weakness isn't so much of a weakness this year.
So you're looking at the season, and you said they can win the division. What would be a success? I mean, a Super Bowl or bust, or what are you looking at for the Cowboys this year?
I am of the belief that every season is Super Bowl or bust for every team.
Yeah.
And because you don't want to lose, and what do you really win saying, oh, we went to the NFC Championship game, or we went to the Super Bowl, but we lost, So for me, every season is a Super Bowl or bust. But if you're looking like the expectations, what I can be like, okay, this is kind of what my expectations are for the season, and what I think, we can do. I think we can get to the playoffs, and I think we might be able to win a playoff game, maybe, depending on who the matchup is. If we're a low seed and we got to play the number 1 seed, it might not happen, but I think we might be able. I don't see us competing for a Super Bowl this year, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, but you see, like Dak Prescott wins that playoff game, or at least 1 or 2. I mean, you can at least look at that as a success. But it's tough, sometimes. I get it. Like I'm a Bears fan, and I would love them to go to the Super Bowl, but they're not even anywhere close. There's Justin Fields development and all that, and it has to be tough as a Cowboys fan, because yes, you want to see them win, but some of the fan base maybe just wants to see Mike McCarthy gone. So if they get to the playoffs and win a game to save his job, I mean, you're going to have the same questions again. I mean, do you really want that as Cowboys fans?
Me personally, no, I don't want Mike McCarthy as the coach anymore. I was of the opinion that if he didn't get significant I was of the opinion last year, if he didn't, with that team, if he didn't go a significant distance in the playoffs, at least NFC Championship game, he shouldn't have been brought back. And that was my opinion. Obviously that didn't happen, and here we are. We have him again. We have the same coach, pretty much the same coaching staff, and you're like, okay, what are the expectations this year? What is going to happen? What does he have to do? I'm sure he's asking, like, what do I have to do to keep my job? If he goes and he wins a playoff game, like one game, and then, or it's eliminated, I don't see that as something like, hey, you got to bring him back. There's no way I could be like, yeah, you got to bring him back. Well, he did nothing that we haven't done before in the last 25 years. So, for me, he's got to get to a Super Bowl to be able to keep his job. And so I just don't see it happening, to be honest with you. But hey, there's sometimes where at the beginning of the season, you don't think your team's going to be very good, and they surprise you.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at that, and it would be interesting to see. And these coaches, they don't really know anything else. It would be interesting to see, if he, did go to the Super Bowl. Say the Cowboys win the Super Bowl, and what would be interesting? A Cowboys Bills Super Bowl, right?
Oh, that would be great, because you get Diggs versus Diggs, man.
Well, yeah, and then just the '90s rematch as well.
'90s rematch, yeah. That would be great. I mean, that would be great. You have the historical value of the early '90s, and then you got the Diggs brothers going up against each other. They've kind of trash talked each other of who's better and everything like that. That'd be a fun matchup to watch and stuff like that. But yeah, that would be great. I would love that. Trust me.
But yeah, and then you look at that, say, McCarthy goes to a Super Bowl, wins a Super Bowl, or whatever, if he's there, if he would ride off in the sunset. But, I don't know if he would do that. Coaches just, they don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah. McCarthy seems like a guy who wants to keep his job. He wants to coach in this league. We'll just have to see. I unfortunately think that he is hamstrung a little bit with this Cowboys organization. I think that every coach is going to be hamstrung coming to this organization with Jerry and Steven running the show. They're just too involved in the day-to-day decisions. They hold they're in the team meetings. How many owners sit in the team coaches meetings? Like they're not many. I don't know for a fact, but I would say not many. And there's this is one thing that irks me as a Cowboys fan is when Tyron Smith went down, they didn't name a starter who was going to replace him. They wouldn't name it, and they wouldn't. Mike McCarthy was really coy about it. Stephen Jones was really coy. No, and everybody's like, we know it's going to be Tyler Smith. Like, we know that. You guys said that when you drafted him, that his eventual position, you want him to be the left tackle. So we know that it's going to be him, but they wouldn't say it. Well, Jerry Jones went on a radio show today and said it. And basically it was everybody was being coy and wasn't allowed to say anything because Jerry Jones wanted to be the one that announced it. And it's like, this is just ridiculous. And it's annoying as a Cowboys fan.
Oh,
I bet it's annoying for us fans outside. It's, like, oh, come on, this is again.
Well, as a non-Cowboys fan, I think many people enjoy all of the drama.
Probably, yeah.
Well, speaking of historical value, I've got one last overreaction statement, and I apologize ahead of time if you're offended by it, but here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Emmitt Smith was made by his offensive line. Overreaction or not?
That's an overreaction. I think that his offensive line helped him a lot, and I think that he helped his offensive line a lot. You're always going. I think that when it's an offensive line and a running back relationship, they always help each other. A great offensive line can block, but if the running back can't see the holes and can't get through them, then it's no point. And a running back obviously can't run if his offensive line's not blocking well. If you remember in the 92 season, I think it was, that Emmitt Smith sat out. He held out, missed the first 2 games. It was horrible. They lost both those games, and we couldn't run the ball to save our lives. So it was, Emmitt Smith came back, and he immediately started dominating the league again. So Emmitt Smith is a great running back, one of the all-time greats. I don't believe he's the best running back of all time, but I believe he's in the conversation for top 5, in my opinion. So I might get some heat from some Cowboys fans, but that's just my opinion. But I think, yes, his offensive line did help him tremendously because it was a great offensive line. You can't take anything away from them, because if you're going to say it's all Emmitt Smith, you're taking away from these Hall of Fame players that played on the offensive line. But I also think it was a lot of Emmitt Smith's greatness, because that guy was a beast. He was a workhorse.
When you talk about those 90s teams, you had Super Bowls, and what would it be like in Dallas, in the state of Texas, if the Cowboys were to make the Super Bowl this year, or maybe even next year?
Oh man, the emotions that would come from that, like it's insane. Like it's so hard to even describe how long and this drought has been, and like how difficult it is, because when you're a team like say the Lions or the Browns or something, yeah, they've had longer droughts, but everybody doesn't constantly remind them of their drought. You say you're a Cowboys fan, and the first thing that comes out of most people's head, oh, you guys haven't won a Super Bowl in this long, and it's immediate. Like, so, and yes, the Cowboys name, the Cowboys brand, and a lot of Cowboys fans, I will 100% admit it, a lot of Cowboys fans bring it on themselves. And they're constantly being talked about. The media is constantly discussing them. And as a fan of other teams, especially like a rival of the Cowboys, it has to be annoying as all can be to just, you turn on the TV and not good Cowboys team is being talked about, and you're like, why are you guys always talking about them? I get it, but as a Cowboys fan, it's difficult because we are always getting talked about, and it annoys other fan bases, and it drives up that animosity towards the team. So being able to go and get to the Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl, would just bring so much relief to Cowboys Nation, just because that could be stopped being said.
Hey, I get it. I'm a Cubs fan, and 2016, it was just emotions, and it was weird, to have that many emotions about sports, but it makes a difference, and and you can't take that away, now, and so I definitely understand that, and in the media, you talk about like Stephen A. Smith. He's got his cigars ready
Oh
too.
man. Oh yeah. He every yeah, for how the 72 Dolphins pop champagne when the last undefeated team loses so they can celebrate they're the only undefeated team. That's what Stephen A does when the Cowboys finally are eliminated. He pops his champagne and he's ready to celebrate.
Well, talk about celebrating, and they were on the road. ESPN was on the road, and Michael Irvin was there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to Stephen A is the one end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Michael Irvin obviously is an all-time great receiver,
Yes.
but when you look at his assessment of the Cowboys, I mean, it's clouded by his relationship with
Oh,
Jerry Jones, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like most Cowboys fans don't take like we love him. He's an all-time great and everything like that. It's just hard to be like, oh, come on, man. Like I get it. It's your bias talking. That's all it is. It like you said, it's clouded by his relationship with the team and his love of the team and stuff like that. Yeah, we don't take his word like, oh, Michael Irving said this. Like we know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. I definitely appreciate you coming on. And where can everyone find you again?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the J.A. Massey. And then also you can find me on wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me on the 4D podcast with Dan Rupert.
And when are you recording?
We put out an episode every Thursday, usually. Every Thursday. So just once a week, just check on your podcast app, and we should have a new episode out for you.
Well, awesome. I'm looking forward to the season. Looking forward to see what drama awaits. The Cowboys this year. Absolutely.
Oh man, sorry, this just slipped my mind. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, good.
I'm actually going to be. I got started on a new show that is going to be premiering this Thursday, with a new sports media company called Pick Six Sports Media, and they're starting up, and the show premieres this Thursday. It'll be on YouTube on the Pick Six YouTube channel. And it is a midday show every Thursday from 11:45 to 12:45. So if you want to, it's a Cowboy show. If you want to listen to Cowboys, you're a fan of Cowboys, please check us out.
Well, hey, I may even just come on and heckle a little bit too.
Yeah, there you go. We would love it.
Although I'm a Bears fan, I don't have much to heckle about this time. So. Well, thanks again, Massey.
He's got a talented quarterback, man. So we'll see how he develops.
Finally. Well, thanks again, Massey. Once again, this has been NFL Outdated, Cover 2 series on Dallas Cowboys. Definitely tune into that and the 4D podcast. And check me out on Twitter and also on YouTube, NFL Outdated. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you.